Before going into the topic details, I want to bring your attention to the UPSC coaching programs offered by ClearIAS. ClearIAS offers online and offline courses to help candidates get selected for prestigious government services like IAS, IPS, or IFS. ClearIAS Prelims Cum Mains (PCM) course provides a highly effective study plan, well-organized subject-wise videos, study materials, mock exams, and guidance to cover the entire GS syllabus of UPSC CSE prelims, mains, and interview systematically. As a limited-period offer, there is a 40% discount on our online courses. Enroll now.
So we are going to understand what actually happened between India and Canada. So what is saying is that our own Indian envoys, our own diplomats, everybody is saying that Canada actually ruined the relationship. So you must be understanding about you must have heard about the story, that is there are a lot of Khalistani people actually working and operating in Canada. They're having more liberal freedom to operate there. So two of the people, that is, one is Nijjar and another is Pannoon. Two people, a lot of people are there, but two people were actually murdered there. And the Canadian authorities, they actually accused Indian diplomats or India. That is, India is actually behind this kind of murders. That is what the accusation of Canada is. And precisely, Canada is saying that there are some diplomats, Indian diplomats, that is Indian Foreign Service officers, etc. In Canada, they are behind this particular assassination. So Canada wants to say that, okay, that murder has been committed, right? So if a murder is committed, you cannot actually have the diplomatic, privileges, etc. We need to remove India. Canada asked India to waive off that diplomatic privilege so that Canada can take our, officers. That is what actually happened. And a lot of these two nations, continuously exchanged different statements, etc. And finally, we called their ambassador, they called our ambassador, a lot of different issues happened. So this is what actually happened, that Canada wants to investigate those murders. And because of those things, because of the accusations on India by Canada, and later United States of America also supported Canada. USA said that, okay, India is actually behaving this way because there is some kind of reality in what Canada is accusing. So parties are taking side, etc. And that is why this issue is actually happening. So we'll understand what is this thing called diplomatic immunity. So if you become an IFS officer, that is Indian Foreign Service officer, are you an All India Service officer or a Central Service officer? Central Service only. So as an All India Service officer, you will be an either IAS officer or an IPS officer or a Foreign Service officer. So Indian Foreign Service does not fall into an All India Service. It falls to the Central Service only. So as an Indian Foreign Service officer, you will have the diplomatic privileges or immunity. So what are the different privileges that is according to the Indian officers actually? So according to the international law, that grants a certain foreign government officials legal immunity from the jurisdiction of another country. So if I am working in some other country, maybe having some harsh laws, maybe having some liberal laws, but I am actually avoided from the local legal laws and regulations. That is the privilege I will be getting if I am an Indian Foreign Service officer. So why it is actually been there? It is designed to allow diplomats to conduct their duties safely and freely, even during armed conflict or political tension. That is, even if that country is actually going through some major issues, etc., I am a diplomat, I can work freely. I have to work freely because I have to keep my national interest. That is why it has been actually being given. And it protects diplomats and their families. Again, this is another statement, protects and their families and property from prosecution in the host country. So statement, right? For a statement, UPSC can ask, it protects actually only the employees or only the staff in that particular office in the other country. No, it protects their families also. It protects their children also. Suppose you are actually a person who are an IFO, Indian Foreign Service officer. You have a child, you are working in some kind of country like Canada, etc. You have the privilege, your wife or your husband has the privilege. You cannot arrest your children for some kind of issues illegally. That is the point which we have to say. The next thing is that it grants them safe passage also and freedom of travel also. So if you are a diplomat there, you can freely travel in that country, no issues with that. And you will have that safe passage in case something like that happens. For example, the Iranian Revolution. I don't know if you remember, it happened in the 1970s. So before the 1970s, Iran had a different sultan. So he was actually very much modern and all. He was actually, you can say, westernized. He was actually very cordial, having cordial relationship with the Western countries like US, etc. it's actually impossible to imagine Iran right now, because Iran is actually completely almost a closed country right now. It doesn't communicate its internal affairs, everything with outer countries. There is no transparency at all. And recently only there was a lot of protest happening in Iran because of the suppression of the women. So a lot of issues are happening right now. So before 70s, what happened was that it was an entirely different rule. And in the 70s, the Islamic Revolution actually happened at the Iran. And even during that time, the diplomats were actually, there a lot of armed conflicts, everything was happening. It was chaos, it was violence. And even in between that, there are a lot of movies also made of that. That is, rescuing the diplomats from that particular region, the American diplomats, etc. So that safe passage is their right. That is the point. And last but not the least, it does not mean that if I am a diplomat and if I'm in another country, I can do anything as my will. No, it is not like that. They are not above the law and they are still required to follow the laws of the host country. For example, I am in India, I'm an Indian. I drive through the left side of my line in the road. If I go to US, I have to follow the right side, right? I cannot actually say that in my country, I go through the left side, so I'll go to the left side. So you cannot do like that. So there will be local host laws. You have to follow those, all the different laws. That is what the privilege is actually. So let's go to the last few points about the diplomatic immunity, etc. And how these rules and regulation of diplomatic immunity and all these things came into being. It came into being by the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations 1961, which was actually agreed by India in 1962-63 something onwards, and then later ratified by the Indian Parliament in 1972. So we can say that in 1972, India agreed to the norms of the Vienna Convention on diplomatic relations. So India accessed, I guess, in 1965 during the war actually, and later in 1972 we ratified it. So that is the status. So India is also part of, India also completely abide by the laws and regulations of the diplomatic privileges. Now, between the India-Canada, what is actually the issues happening here? Number one is actually the Khalistan issue. So Khalistan is what is the Sikh separatist movement, of course. Even though it is actually almost fading in India, or if it is actually completely regulated or controlled in India, the bloody violence past of the Khalistan movement. We had our own prime minister in 1984, Srimati Indira Gandhi was actually assassinated in and around the Khalistan issue. So that was the magnanimity or the size of that particular issue. But this Khalistani people are actually having more liberal space, or they're having more space to operate or to express their ideas and all in Canada, because Canada is a more liberal country. So they are having the space there. It is a problem for us. Ultimately, they are planning to have it is a separatist movement on India, of course. So even though they are operating there, it is a problem for us. One point. Second thing, it is actually an issue on our own sovereignty, of course. Why? Because recently, also in the very recent years, they conducted a referendum, that is voting. So all the Indians actually there, they just came together, they just voted whether they need a separate state, whether they need a separate country for 6 in India. They voted there. So why do you want to vote there? There is no impact. There is no, what is a real life impact, even though there is a political impact. Why? Because Canada, the government of Canada realized that, okay, they are a large group. And if they are actually the almost 90 or 98% or 100% of them, they actually wanted a separate country for them. So that kind of political implications will be there between Canada and India because of that referendum. So it affects our sovereignty. The third thing is, just like I said, when these kind of referendums and rallies are actually happening, Canada realized that it's a very large group. They have a huge presence in different provinces like Ontario, that is the capital of Canada, etc., and the other provinces. So the government of Canada realized that it's a huge vote bank. So they are definitely playing to the tunes of the different Khalistani movement or groups. So that vote bank politics is definitely happening there. And the next thing is actually about the different security issues. And why security issues is because we are actually asking them for the extradition of certain people we call as terrorists actually. So they are actually extremely threat to India. So we are asking Canada that, okay, please give us that people because they are heavy threat to India, but they are not budging. So it is actually security issue for us. And we are also having different kind of agreements like trade agreement. The talks are actually going. Nothing is being implemented. And all the projects, all the agreements which are already signed that are not properly implemented also. And then to addition to that, we already see whenever the Canadian Prime Minister actually visits India, he's actually getting a cold welcome. When the US president is coming, we'll be giving a very warm welcome. A lot of rallies will be there. More than lakh of people will be coming into the roads to say hi to him. But when the Canadian Prime Minister is coming, nobody is giving any mind to him. So that is actually what the actually happening. So the relationship is actually not in a very good state right now.